there are two people in.
Oh, okay.
So folks
Are you one
waiting.
of them?
I am not yet, no. So that would be what you'll use to share your tab.
So if I hit this,
so this is kind of slick. So they give you buttons here. You can jump back and forth between this and YouTube. Just by clicking, you don't have to come up to the tabs. You can just use those buttons if you prefer.
Now, on this, whoops, I shouldn't have hit that.
You're still sharing, I think. I believe you're still sharing.
So I just have to go back up to this one. Oh, I got you.
No, you're not sharing anymore. We would see those two buttons. Yep, you're right. So yeah, select that.
Select that.
There we are.
But now, if people are entering into the chat, I'm not gonna. Will I see these over here?
No,
or
not
I have
when
to.
You're in
I have
presentation.
to go back and forth.
To be back there. That's the one benefit of if we had the extra monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could have the console up over there, and you could monitor the chat while you're doing your presentation. But I can be over here on my computer, keeping an eye on the chat also. I think I'll be able to see what's happening in the chat.
All right. How would I get back to my full screen again then? Last time I hit that one, which I shouldn't have done.
Right up there.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So I can just tab back and forth this way.
Yep. I don't know where we're not seeing the user count.
Oh, here it is. They're right here. Okay. There's 3 people on.
Great. I will be number 4.
Will you be able to monitor the chat for me if I'm in presentation mode? Yep. So you can tell me if there's a question?
Yep.
Okay, that'll work out great. Well, good evening. I appreciate your interest in learning more about the school bond. My name is Jeff Drake. I am in my 6th year as superintendent of Fergus Falls Public Schools. I will be in presentation mode, but as the presentation goes along, if you have questions, you can insert those into the chat. And then I will pop in and out of presentation mode to check on the questions and respond to those as the presentation goes along. I do have a lot of information to share with you, so I appreciate your time this evening. It will take about a half an hour or so to go through the presentation, plus whatever time is needed to address any questions you may have. As we get started, just really proud of the work of our staff and our students and some of the accomplishments that we've had in the last couple of years. Last spring, we graduated 141 graduates with a 97.1% graduation rate, which is outstanding. This fall, we've been really pleased with our enrollment. That is up about 10% over the previous period last last fall of the 23-24 school year. We do have a stable fund balance. We do operate the district in a fiscally conservative manner and pride ourselves on having a balanced budget each year. We get excellent reports back from our annual audit. And with our recent experience going out to borrow money, Moody's gave us a AA3 rating, which is a low risk and a favorable borrowing rate because of that. This is some of the news that I was most proud of the work of the staff and students, and that has to do with our spring MCA results. Fergus Falls was first among area schools in the region in math, 16% higher than the state average. First in science, 19% higher than the state average. And second in reading, 13% higher than the state average. The only school that was ahead of us in reading was Battle Lake. And so extremely proud of the academic success of our students and a credit to the dedication of wonderful and talented teaching staff. In the upper right-hand corner is a photo taken about a year ago. That was at the Minnesota Rural Education Fall Conference. And that is a photo of our Prairie Science class teachers. And we were one of 2 schools recognized for a program of innovation by MREA across the entire state of Minnesota. And it is a wonderful program and played a role in ultimately the site selection for the proposed 3-5 school with its adjacency to the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. In the bottom right-hand corner, you see a photo of our OtterBots team. And this program is done with a lot of volunteer help from Ottertail Power. But our OtterBots had the most successful season in their program's history last spring. They finished 4th at state, and they also received a very prestigious Dunwoody Institute Award for their design and their ability to explain the reasons behind the design and their trial and error process. The photo to the left is one of our teams that has been very successful in the Envirothon. This is an area that Fergus Falls typically dominates regionally each year, and really appreciate the work of Mr. Pearson in guiding that program. And then over on the right-hand side is a photo of our Ag Mechanics team. So 2 years ago, that team took first in state, and then last fall, they competed at the Nationals and had received a gold rating. That's the Agricultural Mechanics and Technology team. And special thanks to Mr. Witzke and Ms. Lundquist on their guidance of that very, very successful program. The mission of the Fergus Falls Public Schools is to prepare productive and engaged members of society by creating an environment where all students reach their full potential. And that all students piece is really, really an important part about why we're having a conversation with our community about the importance of this 3rd through 5th grade school. The depiction in front of you on the next slide is our portrait of a graduate. And this is essentially our vision for Otter education. We start with core knowledge in the upper right near the top. And this is all the curriculum, the reading, writing, arithmetic, science, vocational programs. So that's the curriculum that we teach our students. It's the standards, etc. Core knowledge. Then we use that core knowledge as the foundational base, and we are having our students do creative problem solving. So this is where project-based instruction comes in. We want our students picking up those higher learning skills, higher order thinking skills, scientific reasoning, the principles of engineering, the ability to collaborate as a member of a team, trial and error in going back and designing and redesigning. And so those that type of thinking and that type of work is a key component of what employers are looking for as they bring people on board. All that works in conjunction with the communication skills, the ability to be effective listeners, to be articulate speakers, to be strong writers. And when I talk about communication skills, we're also talking about a realization that we are part of a global economy. And so we want students recognizing not only the wonderful community of Fergus Falls, but the world beyond Fergus Falls, because we are intertwined. There was no greater example of this than during the height of the pandemic with the supply chain issues that we have. We are part of a global economy now, and it's really important for our students to recognize our place in that economy and the intricacies from one country to another. Then character will always be a top priority of ours. We could have the brightest students cross the stage with an honor diploma, but if they are not people of high moral integrity, honesty, strong work ethic, living by a set of values and principles we can be proud of, we really have lost the battle in terms of our mission here at the school. All of those components come together to make contributing citizens. So we want our students actively involved in the community as employees, as volunteers, as future or present entrepreneurs, and people that are going to be civic leaders and involved as our friends and neighbors. So that's our vision for Otter education with a strong loyalty to our wonderful country. So let's talk a little bit more about the need for this proposal. First of all, we're talking about building a new 3rd through 5th grade school that would replace both McKinley and Adams. McKinley and Adams were built in 1939. They are 85 years old. They were built in another era, and life has changed significantly since that time, and so has education. Adams and McKinley have aged over that time. It should be no shock that they need a significant amount of work. That is not due to negligence on the part of the school district. It is simply a function of having nearly 700,000 square feet that averages 45 years per square foot, and the inability of our annual budget to keep up with all the maintenance needs on older infrastructure. That $16 million was recommended based on an independent assessment of our facilities by ATS&R. ATS&R was familiar with our district based on its work with the 2010 addition and remodel of KSS. Even with the $16 million in maintenance and repairs, our site would still not meet some of the modern safety standards and would not meet some of the standards in terms of space requirements and recommendations that modern school construction falls under. So what are some of the facilities challenges? McKinley has no off-street parking. Adams has about a dozen spaces. And these schools were built in an era where students largely walked to and from schools. They were neighborhood schools. Over the course of time, the district, for operational efficiency, closed a number of our schools, and so we've consolidated buildings, again, for consistency and operational efficiency's sake. But the fact that they don't have adequate off-street parking, et cetera, leads to a lot of congestion with pickup and drop-off among parent vehicles. We have staff coming in and out of there and buses weaving in and out of there. And it's not an ideal situation for student safety. We also split or share an administrator between the two buildings. And this day and age with safety front and center, I certainly would feel more comfortable if we had a single site with a full-time administrator present throughout the school day. And then one final piece is the modern design for screening people coming into the buildings. There are blind spots in both McKinley and Adams with that screening process. We do have measures in place, but a modern school design would greatly enhance that screening ability. Some of the other facility challenges, we have core areas that are simply undersized. This includes gymnasiums, kitchens, art, science, and music rooms. There's no additional space to expand these buildings. They're on significantly undersized lots by today's standards. You see a photo of the McKinley cafeteria on the right-hand side. Principal Colbeck assigned some students to eat in the gymnasium because of the overcrowding and noise levels that it would create if those students were all to try to be squeezed into the McKinley cafeteria. Additional challenges just relate to the changes in education over the years. So when these schools were designed and built 85 years ago, there was no special education services being administered or supported for our students. We now use former storage areas to deliver instruction and support to students. Our restrooms do not meet modern ADA compliance. And due to the small music rooms at Cleveland, we end up busing students in orchestra and band once every 4 days to KSS because our facilities don't support that large group music rehearsal. You can see other industries certainly have evolved over time. A picture of a tractor circa 1939 compared to a modern piece of equipment today. The same in effect in an operating room or emergency room. Public education is no different. Our teaching strategies have changed. Our methods have changed. The way we evaluate students has changed. It's much more hands-on and collaborative learning now. And again, that philosophy has shifted with the changing needs in society, needing students with those higher order thinking and problem solving abilities. So it is hands on deck with students trying to solve modern everyday problems that have an impact on their daily lives. So we'll move into a shift on the process. The process back in 2016 with some long-term planning from the districts looking at our upcoming facility needs. We did a independent facility analysis, as I mentioned earlier, with ATS&R. They looked at the condition of our buildings, and they also looked at what they called educational adequacy. And educational adequacy refers to the space and its appropriateness for modern day teaching methods in support of those. The facilities committee, which was comprised of over 20 members, some were school administrators, school board, teachers and other staff members, and also community members, came out of that process with 2 recommendations to the Fergus Falls School Board. Recommendation number 1 was to finish the north half of Lincoln School, which is the former Target building, and move kindergarten out there. That phase 2 was completed at the end of this summer, and kindergarten is housed out there now. That change allowed us to move 5th grade out of KSS and into a more appropriate elementary setting with 4th grade at Cleveland. And then Adams and McKinley both share grades 1 through 3. From there, the facilities committee also recommended moving on from Adams and McKinley and building a new elementary school. The school board commissioned an independent community survey last fall to gauge the community's potential support for a new elementary school. The results of that survey were inconclusive. Essentially, the results fell within the margin for error, but the school board did feel there was enough support for the concept to move ahead with a vote last spring. So on I believe it was May 15th, the school district, our Fergus Falls community, had the opportunity to vote on a proposal for a larger school at an increased cost. That did not pass. There were roughly 2,200 votes against it, and 1,300 plus votes for it. The feedback received by the school board was go back and tighten up the proposal some more and reduce some of the cost. And that is what is before the public for consideration on November 5th. We have some facility challenges in the district, and I'm going to walk you through what I think are the three options in front of our community, both short-term and long-term. Option number one is before the community on November 5th, and that is to build a new 3rd through 5th grade school. The district would look to sell McKinley and Adams so that they could be repurposed into some other function that would benefit the Fergus Falls community. You're going to see 2 ballot questions on November 5th. So we broke this down into 2 questions. Question number 1 is to support a $48.84 million bond to build a new school for grades 3 through 5. The estimated bond rate for the loan would be 5% over a 22-year term. For the average residential homeowner in Fergus Falls, your home is valued at approximately $250,000. Your taxes would increase by $7.17 per month. That's just a little bit under 25 cents per day. Question number 2 can only be passed if question number 1 is approved. That's a $910,000 additional bond levy authority to construct a soccer and baseball field at the new school. And the owner of an average $250,000 home in the district, if that were passed as well, would pay an additional 33 cents per month. The advantages to option 1 is the proposal addresses safety concerns. It addresses inadequate space, for example, the large group rehearsal space for music, the lack of special education space and title space. It would address the $16 million in renovations to McKinley and Adams by replacing those 2 older buildings with a new structure. It would address the undersized gyms and cafeterias, kitchens, and the solution offers some operational efficiencies, which we conservatively estimate would save the district over $100,000 a year. And that is efficiency derived from trying to operate 2 smaller facilities versus 1 slightly larger school. What's the disadvantage? The main disadvantage is simply the cost. It is a little bit more expensive in the short term than the other 2 options I'm going to walk through. Excuse me. Option number 2, the district submits a review and comment to the Minnesota Department of Education, requesting approval to bring a $16 to $20 million voter-approved bond request to a future election. The purpose of that request would be to generate revenue necessary for the maintenance and repairs to McKinley and Adams as outlined in the ATS&R report. The question is, would the voters approve such a plan? The advantage is that it is a lower cost to taxpayers, and it would free up maintenance dollars to meet the needs of other district buildings. The disadvantage is it's unclear if MDE would support a $16 million plus proposal going towards 2 85-year-old buildings on sites that they have clearly designated as undersized by modern standards. The plan does nothing to address all of the other issues or concerns with McKinley and Adams from a safety or instructional space perspective, and it offers little in the way of any increased operational efficiencies. Option number 3 is essentially a community decision that now isn't the time to address any building needs, so the can is kicked further down the road. The advantage, is the tax impact is postponed. The disadvantage is that construction costs will likely continue to rise by an average of 4% a year. And while that's speculative, from a historical context, that is the average over the last 20 years. Presently, our loan rates remain reasonable from a long-term context, and the project is never going to be more affordable than it is right now. The district, in the meantime, would also be tasked with maintaining nearly 700,000 square feet of buildings whose average age is approaching 50 years per square foot. We do not have the annual revenue to address all of the building needs. So while we will be able to address some of the higher priority needs on an annual basis, the fact of the matter is that those buildings will slowly deteriorate unless we were able to generate additional revenue to meet the ongoing repair and maintenance needs of aging infrastructure. If the community decided to wait and build at a later date, if the 4% annual increase, which has been steady over the last 20 years, were to continue, today's $48.84 million building balloons to $59.42 million in 5 years. At 15 years, it is just under $88 million, and at 20 years, that becomes a $107 million project. So there is a price to pay, whether it's the community making the decision to move ahead now or waiting into some point in the future. So the plan, we believe it is the most conservative choice of the options for the district, both short and long term, is for a new 3rd through 5th grade facility at less than 25 cents per day for the average homeowner of a $250,000 home. It is deemed to be relatively affordable to taxpayers and would address safe, secure learning environments and providing our students and staff with a modern facility to both learn and teach in. The feedback from the failed election last May was that the community wanted to reduce the cost of the project. And so this does represent a more conservative plan with 2 referendum questions for a smaller facility at less cost. Again, $48.84 million, question number 1 for a new school grades 3 through 5, $7.17 per month on a $250,000 home. Question number 2, contingent on question number 1 passing, is an additional $910,000 for a soccer and baseball/softball field designed for middle school students. That would add 33 cents per month on a $250,000 home. The operational efficiency comes in energy repair and maintenance savings, the ability to consolidate some staff as people retire or are reassigned, which will create additional efficiencies, and some reduced transportation costs. As you think about the reasons for a new school, think safe schools. The S is for safety, which I've addressed earlier. A is for academic spaces. F is for facilities. And E is for operational efficiency. The cost we've reviewed already, but if your home was valued less, let's say it's $150,000, that is $3.25 monthly tax increase on question number 1. And question number 2 would have 17 cents per month increase. If your home is valued on the higher end and it's $400,000, it would be $13 per month or 58 cents additional on question number 2. As we look at the impact on our families, you can refer back to the numbers that I did share with you. But one of the benefits of the free breakfast and lunch now is the savings to families on an annual basis. And you can see those savings would more than cover the additional $86 of tax impact on a home valued at $250,000. Tax for agricultural landowners is calculated much differently. There's a 70% subsidy through the Ag to School tax credit. And the way you figure this out, you can get a custom quote on ag land on our bond website. But let's, for sake of conversation here, you have land that's homesteaded, agricultural. It's valued at $5,000 per acre. You have 500 acres. Your tax impact will be 500 acres multiplied by 32 cents per acre. So if passed, this would be an annual tax increase to your farmland of $160 per year. If your land is non-homestead, you can see the tax impact column changes. It basically doubles. We'll take that same valuation of $5,000 per acre. You have 500 acres at that valuation, and you're going to multiply that, because this is non-homestead agricultural. You're going to multiply that by 64 cents per acre. And so your annual tax increase on 500 acres would be $320. Looking at the total school tax comparison with respect to other neighboring school districts, even if Fergus Falls was to pass this, and you see the middle column with the gold on the top of it, that would represent the new bond tax impact. Fergus Falls would still be squarely right in the middle of other area districts in terms of tax impact. There are some property tax relief programs that I will touch on briefly. The first one is if you've lived in your home since January 2nd of 2024 and your household income for 2023 was less than $135,000. This is an actual example taken from a local taxpayer who had a property value at $250,000. You see adjusted gross income in the green row of $80,000. They have a regular tax of $3,132, and that stays the same across the row. You see the school bond, no school bond in column number 1. Column number 2 has the $86 tax impact on question number 1 represented. So when you look at your total taxes, it's $3,132 without the school bond passing. It's $3,218 with the school bond passing. But there is a chart that reflects adjusted gross income and total taxes. And where those two columns meet indicates your tax credit refund. And you can see in column number 1, that represents a refund of $964. In column 2, that's $1,011. So the net tax impact without the school bond is $2,168 on that parcel annually. With the school bond, it's $2,207 annually. But note where this would have had, without that rebate, that would have had a tax impact of additional $7.17 per month. Because of that reduction in the taxes, that number is reduced to $3 per month. There's also a property tax refund if it's a maximum of $1,000. You qualify if your net property tax increased by more than 12%, not due to home improvements, and the increase was at least $100. You could qualify for a tax refund of up to $1,000. Then there's a senior citizens property tax deferral program. This one's a little bit more complicated. If it's a married couple, one of them has to be at least 65 years or older. And if married, the spouse has to be at least 62. Your household income can't exceed $96,000, and you have to have owned and lived in your home for the past 5 years. And you have to have homesteaded your home for 5 years. You can't have a reverse mortgage, a life estate, or liens on your property to qualify. And essentially what this does is that the property tax will be capped at 3% of your total household income based on your prior year income. The state pays the remainder of your taxes as a loan, and this part is really important to understand. That loan essentially is escrowed. And so when you sell your home or when your estate is settled, that amount that's been escrowed will be due back to the state. So a payment will need to be made upon settlement of the estate. And there is an interest rate that is charged on that escrowed tax that is owed. So people just need to be aware of that. But it is an effective program for people that are on fixed incomes, worried about their cash flow if this were to be. Frequently asked questions. What if the referendum is not approved? We'll continue to have the same challenges with our facilities and lack of appropriate spaces for a multitude of areas that I covered earlier. And building in the future, those costs will very likely simply continue to escalate. What are the differences between the proposal that was not approved last spring and this fall's proposal? The main difference is in terms of building square footage. This fall's proposal is at 96,415 square feet versus 102,000 square feet last spring. The cost is significantly reduced, 48.84, question number 1, or 49.75 if question number 2 is also passed, compared to $54.8 million last spring. Question number 1 represents a 14% reduction in tax impact for property valued at $250,000. What grades will each school serve? This is our current configuration. Lincoln is serving Otter Preschool, ECFE, and kindergarten. McKinley and Adams both currently serve grades 1 through 3, Cleveland grades 4 through 5, and KSS grades 6 through 12. If passed, the new configuration would still be Lincoln serving kindergarten and early childhood preschool. Cleveland would move to serve grades 1 and 2. The new school would be grades 3 through 5, and the secondary school would be grades 6 through 12. Where would the new school be located? On 29 acres adjacent to Hilltop Celebration Church and across Highway 210 from the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. We were very, very fortunate to find this parcel. It is within city limits. It has city utilities running to it, and it is great synergy with our award-winning partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife with the Prairie Science class at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. How soon would the new school open? So if it were approved, the district would enter a design phase with an architect. That would involve student, staff, and community input. There would be a bidding phase followed by a construction phase. All told, from passage to move-in, it would be approximately a 3-year process. I've mentioned that the district has approximately 670,000 square feet at 45 years of age on average. The last time the school district built or community built a completely from the ground up brand new school dates back to 1968. It was Fergus Falls Middle School, which is now part of the KSS complex, and that was 56 years ago. So despite some remodeling and additions, you can see that the district is simply faced with an abundance of aging infrastructure, and that's what's causing our needs to really bubble to the surface at this point. People want to know what would happen to Adams and McKinley. So those facilities would be sold and could be repurposed to meet other needs in the community. Childcare might be an opportunity there. There is a lack of childcare for families in the area. Housing or assisted living, youth center, perhaps housing a boys and girls club, The county is in phase 2 of a feasibility study for a family resource center, which would also be a good repurposing of those buildings. And there may be many, many other ideas out there among our community. Why don't we just fix what we already have? And that's a legitimate question. The perfect example, I think, of this is the Otter Fieldhouse. That was the stately gym in the old high school. That facility needed some financial attention, kind of sprucing it up some, addressing some infrastructure needs there. But by doing so, we knew we would have a gymnasium, that field house, that would serve our needs now and into the future, and we use it daily. The difference between Adams and McKinley is we could put $16 million into those buildings, and they're still not going to be what we really need. To equate it in a slightly different fashion, let's say that you had a sedan that was old, and it needed $1,600 worth of maintenance and repairs to it. But the vehicle that you really needed was a pickup. And you could buy a brand new pickup for just under $4,900. What would be the better investment? And so when we look at those spaces, it's if you put the money into them, would they really be what you need in order to deliver the quality of instruction and the learning experience that you want the students to have? For more information, please reach out to the school district's website. There is an abundance of information there. You can certainly call or email me for any questions. Please put those in the chat. I'm about to exit the presentation mode, and I'll look to see if there are some questions in the chat. But I can say I really appreciate your interest this evening. Thank you for showing up and learning more about this bond proposal in front of the community. I appreciate greatly your ongoing support of the Fergus Falls Public School District and our students and staff, and certainly encourage you to show up and vote on November 5th. So I will stay online here if there are any questions that you want to enter into the chat. Otherwise, again, thanks for participating and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Mm-hmm. Not seeing any questions in the chat up to this point. I will hang on for another minute here. If nothing appears in the chat, then I will end the stream and once again wish you a wonderful rest of your evening.